It takes a lot of hard work and good luck to get a movie made, but all of that can be ruined in an instant with just one bad decision. The masterwork of horror and science fiction author H.P. Lovecraft, At the Mountains of Madness has long been a passion project for horror auteur Guillermo del Toro. And del Toro seems like the perfect fit for the tale of a group of scientists who discover ancient, terrifyingly powerful entities in Antarctica. Unfortunately, despite James Cameron producing and interest from Tom Cruise, del Toro couldn't get funding from Universal because he told them it would be R-rated, meaning the teens who usually flock to horror movies wouldn't be able to see it. The project was canceled, and del Toro later said he should have lied to executives and told them that At the Mountains of Madness would be PG-13. There were a lot of dumb decisions that led to the demise of the proposed Halo movie, mostly because Microsoft apparently had no idea how Hollywood works. They demanded a huge cut of profits and forced studios to jump through hoops to even have a chance to read the script. Plus, they wouldn't let Sony bid on the film at all, because Sony's PlayStation is one of Microsoft Xbox's chief video game console competitors. Despite all that nonsense, Fox and Universal were both still interested and teamed up. But then they made the final dumb decision in this whole dumb process when Universal hired up-and-comer Neil Blomkamp to direct. Blomkamp was a fan of the game with a distinct artistic vision. The problem is, only Universal wanted him. Both Fox and Microsoft reportedly hated what he was doing, wanting instead to make what the director called a generic, boring film, something like G.I. Joe or some crap like that. Ultimately, the only thing that came of it was some test footage that teases the great Halo movie that could have been. And Blomkamp, he went on to make District 9 instead. Great job, Microsoft. In 1968, Richard Pryor wrote and starred in an extremely dark, socially conscious movie with the intentionally controversial title Uncle Tom's Fairy Tales, the movie for homosexuals. Pryor supposedly became so obsessed with making the film, his wife reportedly destroyed the negative of the then still unfinished movie in a fit of rage. Nearly 4 decades later, another print of the film emerged thanks to director Penelope Spheris, but so far it hasn't been released either. Based on Guy Delisle's intense graphic novel about the struggles of living under the totalitarian regime in North Korea, Pyongyang was supposed to start shooting in early 2015, with Steve Carell in the lead role and Gore Verbinski as director. Then, Sony decided to release The Interview in 2014. That reportedly led to the infamous hack of the Sony servers in retaliation, not to mention bomb threats against theaters that screened The Interview. New Regency decided Pyongyang wasn't worth the hassle and canceled the film entirely. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings books rank among the most beloved novels of all time. First published as 3 separate volumes in 1954, it took until 2001 for Peter Jackson's epic live-action adaptation to hit movie theaters. But there was an earlier version proposed in the 1960s, and it would have starred the Beatles. Yeah, those Beatles. Besides doing a brand new double-album soundtrack, the Beatles were set to star in the live-action adaptation, with Paul McCartney as Frodo, Ringo Starr as Samwise, George Harrison as Gandalf, and John Lennon as Gollum. Unfortunately, Tolkien wasn't a Beatles fan, and he decided to nix the idea. Otherwise, both music and cinematic history would have been completely different, and much, much weirder.
Star Trek was cancelled after 3 seasons in 1969, but its popularity exploded in syndicated reruns. By 1977, the series was set to hit the big screen with a film called Star Trek Planet of the Titans, where the Enterprise and Captain Kirk would face off against the giants of Greek mythology. But just before filming was set to begin, Paramount president Barry Diller cancelled the whole thing for a really stupid reason. Star Wars was already scheduled to arrive in theaters that year, and he didn't think fans could like sci-fi enough to support 2 space epics in the same year. Way to totally completely misread the entire industry, Barry. Long before Marvel crushed the box office with Avengers, Warner Bros. Was planning its own superhero team-up in the form of Justice League Mortal, which went into production in 2007. With Mad Max Fury Road director George Miller set to direct, the film had a budget of $200 million and had already begun rehearsing with a cast that included Armie Hammer as Batman, Megan Gale as Wonder Woman, and the rapper Common as Green Lantern. Just one problem: they forgot to actually finish writing the script, and before they could get around to it, the Writers Guild of America went on strike. By the time the strike ended, the actors had moved on to other projects and the whole film had to be scrapped. Whoops. In 2008, Pixar announced its slate of films for the coming years, and among them was a movie called Newt. The plot? What happens when the last remaining male and female blue-footed newts on the planet are forced together by science to save the species, and they can't stand each other? It was so far along in production that Pixar animators left little Easter eggs referencing Newt in Toy Story 3, such as the Newt crossing sign on Andy's bedroom door. But in 2011, Fox Animation Studios released Rio, which had almost the exact same plot, only with birds instead of lizards, and which had reportedly been in production since around 2007, 1 year before Newt was announced. Pixar panicked, worried that Newt would be considered a rip-off, and cancelled it entirely. Strange. They didn't do that with Ants and A Bug's Life.
Okay, can we stop? Get me Cindy on the phone, will you?
It sure looked like Inhumans, which features Marvel characters who are kind of like mutants, but also kind of from space, would be the next massive on-screen team for Marvel. Announced for a 2018 release, the film seemed to be built up from 2 entire seasons worth of storylines on ABC's Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But then Inhumans was quietly dropped from the schedule. Why? There are a couple of theories. Because of the disconnect between Marvel's TV efforts and its movie business, Marvel Studios may not have been happy at having the Inhumans movie's details dictated by a television show with middling ratings. Meanwhile, rumor has it that Inhumans was the pet project of Marvel CEO Ike Perlmutter, and when Perlmutter was ousted from his role at Marvel Studios in favor of studio president Kevin Feige, Feige dumped the film to stick it to his rival and pursue his own vision instead, namely Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel herself, Brie Larson!
Although when you think about it, the biggest mistake of all might have been Marvel selling the X-Men movie rights to Fox way back in the 1990s. We'd never have had to hear about the Inhumans movie in the first place. In 2006, Fox Atomic began filming a modern-day reboot of the classic 80s college movie series Revenge of the Nerds at Emory University in Atlanta, and then school officials actually read the script. Here's actual footage from when Emory University's president finished looking at the screenplay. Anyway, after that, the college immediately pulled out of the project, even though much of the movie had already been filmed. Producers were forced to complete the movie at Tiny Agnes Scott College. When Fox Atomic honcho Peter Rice saw how rinky-dink the movie looked as a result, he decided to just scrap the entire thing. Who made the bigger mistake? Emory for agreeing to participate in the movie before reading the script? Or Fox for actually caring about production values on Revenge of the Nerds?
You know karate? No. Good.
In 2009, Terminator Salvation earned $371 million worldwide, thanks in part to the star power of Christian Bale as a time-traveling, robot-killing, humanity-saving John Connor. 2 sequels were planned, except the Halcyon Company which produced the movie went bankrupt. Even with all that revenue, through some kind of financial idiocy, they couldn't pay off the $39 million they owed the hedge fund Pacificor. In order to pay their debt, Halcyon auctioned off the rights to Terminator. The winning bid? $29.5 million from Pacificor. Nice exit strategy.
Come with me if you want to live.
Here's a real what if. Way back in 1998, South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone signed a $1.5 million deal with New Line Cinema to write a prequel to the 1994 hit comedy Dumb and Dumber. It sounds like a match made in heaven.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
So what was the idiot mistake? Turns out Parker and Stone didn't actually want to do the project in the first place. They eventually gave the money back, leading New Line to hire other writers for what eventually turned out to be the universally panned 2003 prequel Dumb and Dumberer, When Harry Met Lloyd. Hey, I like that movie. Howard Stern first created his superhero alter ego Fartman back in 1981, and it turned into a pre-internet meme with a massively popular appearance at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards.
How'd that ass feel, Luke?
Great ass, man.
Yeah?
It was such a hit that New Line Cinema started production on a feature film called The Adventures of Fartman, which screenwriter J.F. Lawton promised would be just as crude and lewd as you'd expect from a Howard Stern movie. However, when executives got wind of what Lawton was planning, they asked him to tone it down and make it a mainstream PG-13 film instead. Stern immediately quit in protest at the dumb request, and that was the end of Fartman. Oh well. Comedian Sacha Baron Cohen was once set to play the legendary lead singer of Queen, Freddie Mercury, who died in 1991. It seemed like the perfect fit, since Cohen is not only a big fan, he also bears more than a passing resemblance to Mercury. But Cohen backed out of the project when he discovered that the surviving members of Queen wanted the second half of the film to focus not on Mercury, but on how great the band has continued to be since his death. 8 years after Chevy Chase last played smug and smarmy reporter I Am Fletch in 1989's Fletch Lives, the franchise was set to make a comeback thanks to filmmaker Kevin Smith. Smith wanted the film to focus on Fletch's daughter, to be played by his then-girlfriend Jerry Lauren Adams. But after Smith and Chase squabbled over a plan to have Chase reprise his role as Fletch, the entire project was scrapped. Apparently, Chase had something better to do.
Yeah, I was just passing through town and looking for something to do this evening. There was nothing going on at the Rotary Club. I heard about this.
Not to be deterred, Smith later convinced Miramax to buy the rights to the franchise, this time for an origin prequel that would star his buddy Jason Lee and wouldn't involve Chase at all. But Miramax didn't think Lee was a big enough star and shut the whole thing down. Looks like Chase had the last laugh.